Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the daily Rambam Shir, 3 chapters per day, lesson 170, 171, Hilchos Pesulei Hamukdashim from Perek Hey until Perek Yud. Today is the outside of Synagogue Shel Israel, the greatest Jewish defender of all time, Rabbi Dovid Bisk ben Soshe from Berdichov, and it will be appropriate to we don't have to search much and to find a connection between the topic of today's lesson in Rambam and some of his famous defense towards the Jewish people, which was linked to the prayer that we're reciting throughout the days of Yomim Noam, Zochreinu B'chaim, Melech Hofetz B'chaim, Lema'ancho Elokim Chaim. And he explained the idea of life similarly to livelihood parnoso. God Almighty should remember when He described each and every one of us in the book of life. And He explains because everything, though that a person may be involved in his own business and seemingly that he is chasing after the ruble, nevertheless, it is lema'ancho, everything that he does, if he earns $1 for the purpose of giving, supporting another Jew, purchasing a nesrig, a lulav, a tefillin, tuition for children, hoitzoy Shabbos v'Yom Tov, and all the expenses that a person does is, after all, is lemancho. And for that reason, even those type of sins and problems he does, it's not really a sustainable and not a permanent type of sins, zuklapte, zuhakte, broken and defected type of sin. So I was thinking, since the subject today is about the chatois hameisois, so we can say b'derech remez that indeed any type of a chatos, a sin or a deficiency a person does essentially is hameitois, it's a teite, and it is not a sustainable, not a permanent type of chatos. As he said on the famous Musar sentence that Yeshayahu Hanavi was giving, rebuking the Jewish people, and he says, Hoi goy choite am keved ovoin. So he says, Hoi, that goy, the poshet pshat, that the nation is choite, is sinning. But he says, Hoi goy, the idea of goy shaved by this nation is choite, is missing. And such a nation that keved ovoin, it is heavy for him to do any type of a sin, and so on and so forth. And his entire approach, attitude is so appropriate, especially in these days where it is so important to look and to search and to find and utilize each and every limit zchus possible to link and to attach to every id bechol mokim sheiyeh, especially for our brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael. And as I mentioned before, this shiur is dedicated to both to a triple prayer, which happens to be also quite the fact that this took place in the day that the Haskoras HaGeshem have started, Mashiv Ruach Umerid HaGeshem. And it's interesting that the Birkas HaGeshem was placed exactly at Birkas Mechaya HaMeisim. And the Alter Rebbe explains in Shulchan Aruch the reason, same way as Tchias HaMeisim is Chaim Lo'ilom, Geshem is Chaim Lo'ilom. And for that reason, happens to be that the day that we started to be Maskir Dikshomim, the day that we can and we should pray for the resurrection of all the dead people, the Kedoshim, and Bias Moshiach Tzidkeinu, Refuah Shleima to all the Choilim, Pidyon to all the Shvoim, and Shalom Veshalvo for the rest of Am Yisrael Bechol Mokim Shehem. So the contents of the first chapter of our Shir 170 is the discussion of what we have started yesterday about Chatois HaMesois. There is Aloha LeMoshe Misinai that 4 types of Chatois, they have to die. We discussed all the situation yesterday. However, a Chatos can come in a form of a physical format, an actual animal, and sometimes it can come in a format of a currency of money, a person designated towards Chatos. So if a person actually designated a X amount of money and he died, so the same way as had he designated an animal, the animal will have to die, since it is Chatos Shemeisu Be'aleh, or Chatos that her owner died. Same way will apply to the money that was designated towards the Chatos. After his death, this money must be taken to Yam HaMelech, to the Dead Sea, and get lost out there. Same way as a Chatos that was lost and were found after the owner was atoned, so if it would be a physical Chatos, will have to die. The same way, those money that a person designated and then he lost it, and instead of the original money which meant to buy a Chatos, he went ahead, purchased another Chatos, and he was already atoned, and after the atonement he found the original money, so those money must be taken to Yam HaMelech. However, if he found the money before the atonement with the alternative Chatos, so then he should combine the monies of the original sum with the current Chatos and will buy an actual animal, and whatever left over will be forwarded towards Nedovo. Nedovo, generally it is a Korban Oilam. Another halacha that is being discussed is when a person who was designating a amount of money for the Chatos and turned out that he is not obligated to bring the Chatos. He didn't really sin that he deserved to bring a Chatos. So therefore, it is considered Hekdesh Betos, mistakenly designated towards the Hekdesh, and for that reason, turns out the money is Chulin. So you can benefit exactly as you benefit from mundane, from ordinary money. However, if he designated money towards 2 Chatois, and turns out that indeed he owes, he is obligated, he is liable only with 1 Chatos. In such a case, whatever is left over is not a Hekdesh Tos, it will be considered a Moisar Chatos, the surplus of a Chatos, the leftover, the change of the Chatos. In such a case, it will be forwarded towards Nedovo. In a case when a person took a pile of money and he specified the following sentence: Ovi mehen, I will bring from this money Chatos, so the leftover will be 100% Chulin. So it will be very important to make a distinction at what case it is considered a Moisar Chatos, a leftover of Chatos, which then it will be Nedovo, or in such a case that it's not Moisar, it was retroactively turned out that it was not designated to war Chatos. From this point on until the end of the chapter, the discussion is around leftovers of korbonos. Leftovers, he designated the amount of money and had the intention to purchase a korban, and in reality, he has some change. So each and every case is being dealt differently. For example, the leftovers of Chatois and Ashomois, they will be Nedovo Nedovo, as we said, it's a korban oilo. The leftover of the korban Pesach will be purchased shlomim. The leftover for the offering of Nazirites will be given to Nazirites, or to himself in case he makes an additional commitment to take upon himself a new Nazirus. In a case of a chatos, of korban oile v'yored, if an individual, korban oile v'yored, as we've mentioned many times, is for a specific type of sins, which mentioned in the end of Chumash Vayikru. Amongst them is Tumas Mikdosh v'Kodosho, when a person entered in a state of Tumo into the Mikdosh. So then the offering will depend upon the size of his budget. So in a case a person became poor, and from the original money he designated towards an animal, now he is liable to bring only a bird or a flower offering. In such a case, he will be permitted to use the leftover of the money after purchasing the low budget type of offering for his own needs, and it will be as retroactively they were not holy to begin with. Towards the end of this chapter, we deal with a concept of which later in the next shiur will be more elaborated, is the idea of kinim. Kinim is a very specific type of a offering that contains of two types of birds, where one of them is a oilo, the other one is a chatos, and generally it is being brought by a lady after her becoming pure from the tumas leido or tumas zovo. The general determination which one of the bird is the chatos or the oilo is being determined or by an actual designation of the owner of the korban, or with the offering that the kohen, the action of the kohen. So therefore, he can designate them or to oilo or to chatos. So therefore, as long as they are unspecified, it's called stumin, kein, sosum. It's not specified which one is oilo and chatos. So therefore, the status of this kein, of this pair, is not specified. For that reason, after his death, it's not considered like chatos shemeisu be'aleo, so therefore they can go for nedovo. However, in a case that he designated the X amount of money and he declared that this money is lechoivosi, for my liability, by saying so, he is already predetermined some of the pair towards chatos. Therefore, if he died, the monies will have to go to Yam HaMelach, which is the alternative form of chatos hameso, same way as the actual living chatos is dying, so the money is also being wasted by taking it to the Dead Sea, to Yam HaMelach. In the second chapter, the issue is a ta'arives. If one of the chatois hamesois that we spoke about it previously, and I will quickly cover them, whether a person, the owner of the chatos, died, whether it is a vlad chatos, a tmure of a chatos, or chatos that were originally lost and found after the person was already atoned with a different chatos. So if this is a animal that got mixed with other animals, even 1 in 10,000, all of them will have to die. And the reason, because bit ba'alei chayin, living creatures, since they are choshuv, they are important, so the idea of bitul annulment is not applicable. Nevertheless, if he went ahead and instead to make them die, he brought them as an offering, the offering is a toning for him, and the reason, because after the fact, I will trigger the principle of roiv, the majority. Since the majority of the animals over there, they were fit for a korban, I will assume that they are the majority. If the Isui Mizbeach, as we have learned, there are different type of animals that they are prohibited to the Mizbeach. Soon we're going to find out which type of prohibition we're talking over here. An animal that is prohibited on the Mizbeach was mixed with other animals. So the rule that all of them will have to be in the field until a permanent damage will appear in them, and he will sell them. And the manis of the best one of them, he will bring this korban that he intended to bring. In a case that a mixture of chulin was mixed with kodshim, so again, the chulin will be sold towards those people who are required from bring a korban of this type, and they will have to be offered, all of them. Sometimes there is animals that they are already kodoshim, they were designated to a certain kedusha. So depends. If it is min beminoi, for example, there are two oilois or two chatois were mixed. So each and every one of the bailim, of the owners, will be makne, will sell and will assign it to his friend, and every one that is actually need to bring, he will declare that he brings that particular behemo on behalf of the bailim. If it is a different type, for example, oilo was mixed in chatos or in oshom, so both of them will have to be iru at sheipil bohemum, they'll have to be in the field until a defect will appear in them, they will be sold, and with the dmei hayofe, with the worth of the best one of them, they would bring the best of one type, the best of the other type, and the excess money which exceeds from the total proceeds, he'll have to bring from his own house. The same principle I will apply if the monies that were meant and designated for different korbanos, for example, the mei chatos, the money of chatos with the money of oshom, as long as his chatos were not offered yet, were not brought yet as an offering, so again, he will bring from both of them whatever needs to be brought, or they will assign the money to each other. If the chatos was already offered, so then he'll have to take the mois, the money, to Yam HaMelech. Now when kodoshim, holy objects, korbanos, after they already slaughtered, they were mixed with each other, let's say chatois and shlomim or nashomois, he needs to treat each and every piece with the same severities and stringencies as the stringent one amongst them. When I say stringencies, because each and every korban, the stringencies generally is in the people who are selected to benefit from the flesh of the korban, and stringencies, the expiry time that was given to consume the korban. When the part of those meat or limbs of the offerings happens to be Ba'ali Mumim, so then they will have to be burned like the rest of Pesulei Hamukdashim. When amongst them there is a piece that is Tomei, will be nullified if there is 100 against this piece. A chatos that was mixed in 100 of chulin, or a piece of lechem aponim that were mixed with other breads, they should be given or sold to the kohanim besides that particular piece, or the amount of money that equivalent to that piece, and the kohanim can consume the entire amount, and none of these pieces over there carries any problem. The third chapter is required a small little introduction. There is two categories. There is a category of a typical slaughter that is being done to any animals or birds when it is chulin. However, things that they are kodoshim, while the animal of a kodoshim is being slaughtered in a similar way to chulin, yet when it comes to birds, there is a specific way which is called meliko, which is done A, with the nail of the kohen, B, not through the front neck, but it comes from the back of the neck, and it's being done in a very specific way, and only if a kohen has done it, then it will be considered a proper offering that by chatois hane'echolois will be allowed even to consume the flesh of the chatos. If an individual would do the same practice to a chulin bird, so obviously not only that this chulin bird will be forbidden to eat, but in fact it will be forbidden also for a kohen, it will make him tomei, which means if a nivlas oif tohil, which means a kosher in the sense the type of a tohil bird became an avelo, so when a person is actually swallowing it, then he becomes tomei and he is forbidden to enter into the Beis Hamikdash. Now, what happened if a zar Israel that is forbidden to make a maliko by a korban ho'oif, any type of a korban, he have done so. Although the korban is posul, nevertheless, a nevelo it is not. The reason is because the psul, the disqualification, the defect took place bakoidesh, in the system of Beis Hamikdash. So though, again, the oif, the bird is forbidden as a korban, but nevertheless, if someone swallowed it, he's not becoming tomei, he's not being treated as nivlas oif tohir to be metame in Beis Hablio. However, if the problem in that particular bird was not bakoidesh, for example, a person made a meliko and turns out that the bird was treifo, or if he have done the meliko with a knife, or he has done the chulin inside and the kodoshim bachutz, all those issues are reflecting one common denominator where the psul was already pre-existing psul before it entered to the system of the kodesh. In such a case, it will be an avelo if a person made the meliko. Similar will be if the behemoth was already in a pre-existing disqualification, whether it was nirba, or neva that was served as avodah zarah. On the other hand, if, for example, the psul in the korban came because a wrong location of the sprinkling or the wrong placement of the sprinkling, in all those cases, the korban will be possible, but nevelo it's not going to be. Chatos ho'if. Chatos ho'if is a bird, chatos, that comes because it's not clear. She is a suffix. She may need the behemo, she may need the oif as a chatos, she may not. So she is in a state of doubt. In such a case, this chatos oif will be burned. It's not going to be consumed. If she discovered that she actually needs to bring a chatos oif, it's not suffix, it is vadai that she needs to bring. So depends when she have discovered. If she discovered that before the melike, go ahead with the meliko, and the oif would be consumed like chatos hanecheles. If it was discovered after the meliko, then it needs to be burned. If it was known that she is not chayeves, so then it will be buried like all type of chulin that were nishchatu ba'azor. As far as the lesson 171, we know in Pirkei Avos there is a Mishnah that refers to kinim upischei nido hein gufi toiro. Kinim is a reference to a nest. Nest singular is kain and plural is kinim. Kinim, so a single kain is a reference to the pair of a bird offering that Yoledes and Zovo need to bring at the termination of the period of the tumo that she have experienced. Now, since generally speaking, this type of kain must consist of two birds, where one of them is for oilas ho'oif, and the other one is towards chatos ho'oif. And the ruling is that each and every one of them have a different location where the blood should be placed. For example, ba oilas ho'oif, it is critical that the blood will be placed above the chut hasikro, the central line that divides between the upper and lower part of the mizbeach. While in chatos ho'oif, it must be done on the lower part of the mizbeach. If he has switched and mixed the location of the placement of the blood, so then the korban will be disqualified. If a person have not determined yet about the kain, what type of a kain is it? He did not determine whether the kain will be which one of them is chatos and which one of them is a oilo. It's called kain stumo. If he has determined which korban is inside the kain, it will be considered a kain mefureshes. If a bird flew out from a kain while the kain is still stumo, all he gotta do is to bring another bird ben zug lasheni. If, however, it was already a existing cane. There is already an existing cane. One of them is X amount, let's say 5 chatois, and the other one, there is 5 oilos in one cane. Now came over here a new type of a bird in this type of mixture. Now, in such a case, the recommendation will be, if as long as the cane is sesumo, so only 5 of the birds out of the 11 birds that are right now existing out there will remain kosher chatois, and he must, as long as he springs the blood lemato, like all the chatois, so he will be moilek all of them, and he will place the blood lemato, like any type of a chatois, yet from the entire amount of chatois, as kosher one will be 5, because the other 6, each and every one of them happens to be a sofek oilo and a sofek chatos. So since there is a concept of a sofek in each and every one of them, so there is a sofek whether the actual hazoyo was a proper one or not proper one. After this introduction to this concept, he brings over here different scenarios of cases where there is a oif that left over here the original can and comes back, and each and every station, what type of suffix does it creates. So that's basically a summary of lesson 170 and 71. I want to wish everybody, especially the people in Eretz Yisrael, best wishes for Shono Toivo Mesuko and V'Yakov Holach Ledarkoi. Thank you.